Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is not a shoutcast, but rather a video analysis, so I assume that you have watched the game, know the outcome, or don't care, as I will be spoiling it throughout the match. I'll be focusing primarily on macro level strategy, looking at team compositions primarily, and their win conditions, what teams need to do, what they don't do, and what they do correctly to win the game. I'll also be looking at individual matchups in the lanes, as well as item choices and some individual play when they are paramount to victory or defeat for a team. Aside from that, there will be the occasional individual skill, and we'll talk about what other champions could have been picked to facilitate a team's power in the game. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the match. Here we have Dark Passage versus Edward Gaming. This is their second match in group stage, and let's get into picks and bans. On Dark Passage's side, we see Rengar being banned out. We know a lot of teams aren't ready to face them, and going into the second round for most teams in group stage A and B, Rengar is getting banned out against the teams that know how to play him. You also see Orianna being banned out. This is the very first time we see her being banned in the World Championship, though she will get a couple later on, particularly in the brackets phase. She's a very strong pick, and if you are not planning to play her on your team, it's probably a good idea to ban her out. Maokai gets banned out as well. We know Koro doesn't really play Rumble. This allows Dark Passage to first pick Rise. On Edward's gaming side, we see Nidalee Alistar being banned out. Standard bans for purple side or for the team who doesn't want to play Nidalee or play against her, and then Syndra being targeted at Naru. So for our first pick, we see Dark Passage picking up Rise. With the Maokai ban, they're kind of knocking out one of the members of the trifecta of top lane in the World Championship. Knowing that Koro doesn't play Rumble, this gives one of the strongest picks straight up to Dark Passage for free. On Edward Gaming side, they pick up Zilean, Kha'Zix, good generic jungler. They know that Crystal likes to play Kha'Zix as well, so this is a good pick rather than the Lee Sin. Zilean is a very standard pick for a lot of the Asian teams right now in this metagame. He's pretty strong in the middle, though he has a lot of weaknesses. This is not one of the matches we'll end up seeing it happening, so it does end up being a good pick for EDG. On Dark Passage's side, we get to see Lucian Braum. This is a very, very strong lane. Lucian's able to proc Braum's passive very easily. Lucian's a huge bully in lane that's just provides even more ability for him. Braum is very good at defensive. He can protect Lucian. At level 6, they have plenty of bursts that they can either knock Tristana completely out of lane or kill her. This is a lane for Dark Passage that should be winning on bottom, especially having seen the Tristana pick. On EDG's side, we see Aurelia. She becomes very prominent in the World Championships, especially against the current trifecta of top lane. She does well against Maokai, against Rise, against Rumble. She's very much a skill matchup in top lane, and she hits a power spike where a lot of the other champions hit their power dip. Tristana is also picked up by EDG. We see a lot of the hyper carries coming into play in group stages A and B. They fall out of favor later. For right now, they're doing pretty well. On Dark Passage's side, we see Pantheon coming in. Dark Passages are really looking for some early game potential to win the game early, and we've heard a lot from analysts and from commentators inside and outside of the World Championship videos and matches that they think Dark Passage's only chance to win is through the early game. Now, I don't necessarily think this is true, especially looking forward from here to Kaboom versus Alliance, their second match, where their team composition really drove a nail into Alliance's coffin in their World Championship hopes. However, if they can win early, this is a very strong team to do so, especially on the bottom lane. Pantheon has a lot of options. He also has a lot of options in the top lane. There's double CC as well. So Pantheon is a really good pickup here. The Jace pickup is also very strong. They are assuming that Zilean is mid, and they assume correctly Thresh is the final pick for Edward Gaming. And Jace is a very good champion against Zilean. Jace doesn't have much to fear from Zilean in the mid lane. He has good poke, he has good all-in, good trade damage. If Zilean tries to bomb Jace, Jace can just respond by going all-in, getting his hammer skills, turning into his crossbow shot, his range damage, and out-trading Zilean. The flip side to this is Zilean is not going to try and fight Jace. Zilean wants to ignore Jace, get his double bombs off, knock out the creep wave, and then go make plays somewhere else. Zilean should never be fighting Jace. So this is one point of difference. So by picking Jace, you're kind of telling Zilean, hey, don't fight me, I'm going to beat you, you go elsewhere. So Dark Passage's team needs to be prepared for this. On top of this, Jace has great ability against Zilean in the mid and the late game. The explosive AoE damage of his Shock Blast is really strong. Any type of AoE against a team who has Zilean is great, especially when it's poke damage. The more AoE you can fit onto the enemy team, the less useful Zilean's ultimate is, as it is completely used on one person. We all know it's great at saving one person from assassination, not so great at saving your whole team from AoE damage. There is one problem in this match that I see coming from Jace. I'm going to mention it real quick, and I'll mention it again later. Is he doesn't end up getting at Tear of the Goddess until about 20 minutes. Jace really wants to pick that up, move towards his Mirror Mana as quickly as possible. The tier allows him to spam in lane, getting off as much poke as possible, fast pushing and clearing the wave as much as possible. Because Zilean is not going to want to fight Jace, the fact that Jace goes Brutalizer and Hex Drinker first really becomes kind of pointless. You're not going to duel Zilean as Jace. Zilean's going to ignore you and find other ways to make his presence known. So what you want to do is Jace, pick up the stacking tier, move it into your 20-minute game spike. Your 20-minute power spike with Mirror Mana. The tier allows you to have heavy pushing, always spamming your abilities to keep the creep wave, and then you put a lot of pressure onto Zilean's turret. By having the extra mana to spam, this allows you to either take out Zilean's turret early, if he goes off to roam, or to constantly keep him stuck under tower and not allow him to roam. This is a bit of a mistake on Dark Passage's side. Pantheon goes in for the ward, but he's going in alone, and you really should never invade alone. This costs him his flash, which is really important for Pantheon to have for his early ganks. It's very strong for Pantheon to flash stun gank, get off the double CC with Rise. That would get him into the bottom lane, allow him to attack Thresh or Tristana very early. It's very problematic for Dark Passage that they've lost this. So moving into team compositions, both of them are kind of sitting on individual skill. There's a little bit more team synergy on Dark Passage's side. However, EDG also have some decent... They're running more of a triple or quadra threat team composition, and this is facilitated by Zilean. The Zilean allows EDG to play overly aggressive with their champions, and since they are the better team and individual skill, this is actually going to allow them to win this match. Against other better, stronger teams, their composition would actually be kind of weak. If you got a solid tank on Dark Passage's side, can really delay through the initial burst and then peel through EDG's damage, making Zilean's ultimate not quite as effective. But since Dark Passage is all very short range, this works out in EDG's favor. So what EDG's team is going to do is look for mid-game power spike of Aurelia. We know that as soon as Aurelia gets her 24, she's very strong. Even with just her Sheen and her ultimate, she can start to bully out Rise, going for all-ins against him. This means that EDG should be looking to focus on one point of the map as soon as Aurelia picks up her first item buy. They can either focus on top lane, having Aurelia get to the point where she can easily 1v1 Rise and just relying on her split push snowball to carry the game, or they can look to bully out DP's top jungle, putting a lot of focus on the blue buff with Kha'Zix and Aurelia, using that power of Aurelia to control that. Look for rotational mistakes when when Jace tries to move in to help. You have Zilean there to provide his ultimate, which is much stronger in these 3v3 skirmishes rather than in the 5v5 team fights. The other choice is to put the pressure onto Dragon. Aurelia can look to attack Rise, force him back to base, and then teleport bottom, where EDG will not have a 5v4. Aurelia should be able to burn Rise's TP in the top lane, especially against a less experienced team like Dark Passage. This would give EDG a good amount of gold, and they can snowball through the jungle objective. When it comes to their teamfight capabilities, it's really just everybody dives in. You have 2 resets on Tristana, Kha'Zix. You have Aurelia with her strong power spike and engage ability, at least on one target. EDG are going to be looking to throw all 4 of their threatening members into the fight, and just hope it works out, relying on good Zilean ults to keep up one target. If they're able to throw themselves in and just overwhelm Dark Passage with damage, they can get the resets, they'll come out ahead and clean up the fights because of the resets. For Dark Passage's side, their team composition strategy is really just win lane, win game. They've got very strong lanes. Top lane beats out Aurelia early, though she does fall behind around level 6, as mentioned before. The bottom lane is much stronger than Tristana Thresh, and Jace can bully Zilean as well. This is all facilitated by Pantheon too. He's very strong in the early game, especially at ganks. We see him even against Aurelia with her built-in tenacity. Dark Passage almost gets a kill. What Dark Passage should do with their team composition, since it is very win lane, win game focused, they have to have a plan to snowball this early on. If Dark Passage are able to snowball and get an early lead, then they have the advantage against EDG. They move in towards the middle turret and just poke with Jace. If Dark Passage can ever get enough of a gold and power advantage that they win the 5v5 fight, if Edward Gaming engage, then Dark Passage should essentially win the game because they have the advantage in the chase poke at the turrets. Just sit near the turrets, let Jace and Lucian get 1 or 2 shots off, back up, continue to poke with Shock Blast, and just wait until you generate enough of an HP advantage to force down the turret. This is going to be a big benefit for Dark Passage to group up as 5, because it will lower the skirmish potential of Aurelia and Kha'Zix, as well as lower the ultimate strength of Zilean. In order to facilitate this, Dark Passage have a couple options. I really think their best option is in the bottom lane. Lucian and Braum are extremely strong, especially against Tristana. Tristana is very weak in lane. She's not a bully. She doesn't have any AD ratios. She doesn't have any burst damage. Lucian, with his burst and his double shot, can easily out-trade her and even all-in Thresh and Tristana. This is doubly useful because Braum provides the extra stun, he provides good damage and tankiness, and Lucian is able to proc it very easily. From level 1, Dark Passage should be looking on their bot lane to attack Tristana. Just run straight at her, get the Braum slow, then use Lucian Q into the double shot passive. Force her to pick up Rocket Jump to leave, or to use a summoner to get out. Just get that advantage right away. Unfortunately, Dark Passage do not end up doing this. Holy Phoenix is actually very passive with his Lucian. He likes to get off his Piercing Light hits, and he's very good at hitting Piercing Light through creeps. The problem is he never uses his passive double shot to good effect. There's a lot of times he ends up using Piercing Light, then using his double proc on creeps. This burns through his mana, allows Tristana to get ahead and feel safe because Lucian is unable to use his full combo against her. It's just an individual problem with play, and something that, in essence, helps Dark Passage lose the game, because this is a very strong lane, a lane that they should be winning. So every opportunity, Lucian should be holding on to his dash to get away from Threshold. Threshold should never hit Lucian in this match. And we do see it hitting earlier to the Lantern gank with Kha'Zix. It's very bad. Lucian, once again, Lucian needs to save his dash to stop the CC. And that allows him to be a real bully. He just walks into Tristana for the damage. Thresh can't really do anything about it. If Dark Passage had bullied much earlier, especially from level 1, they could have forced Tristana to play from behind the entire game, pushing her into tower. Explosive shot makes it very hard to farm under tower, and so this would be a good boon for Dark Passage. With Tristana Thresh underneath the tower, Dark Passage would have the option of using Pantheon for a gank. Pantheon can gank towers very well. Prep your shield, leap in, prep your shield, walk in, get a Q shot, take a tower hit, then you use your stun to generate your next stack of, I think it's something Aegis. I don't know the passive name, I'm sorry, but his shield block can block out another turret hit. While the champion is stunned, Braum gets his passive off, Lucian gets in with the double proc, you get to chain your CCs, you get a whole lot of damage, you can quickly burst somebody out under the turret, particularly using it against Thresh, and then get away. This would have been especially effective if Dark Passage had kept Tristana low by having good harassment from Lucian and Braum early on. Alright, gonna stop for a second, point up to this top. This is a very desperate play by Dark Passage. He rises like, I almost want this, I almost want this. He's getting close. He could have waited, gotten close, gotten range to snare, then Q, guaranteeing the kill. Most people would do the same thing in Rise's situation and use his Q, thinking it's going to be enough. You could go for the safer, more secure play, wait another 1 second, get that snare, guarantee yourself the kill. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to think about. If Rise had also just not chased Aurelia, let her go after she flashed away, then Rise could have teleported down to this bottom turret. Rise at a turret is very strong. He could have offered great defense. It would have been a 3v4 underneath the turret rather than a 4v2. Unfortunately, this is not what happens, and everything goes wrong for DP. They kind of all die one by one, and this is the end of the game for them. They end up giving up 4 kills. Dark Passes get Dragon after it. It's just very sloppy play, to be honest. When Lucian got away and Braum was sitting under the turret, 1v4, they should have just given up the turret. There was no way for them to feasibly fight back at that point. Lucian, however, tries to get off a few pot shots, get some extra damage, as we'll see in a second. See, if Rice had TP'd right here, would have turned out to be a very different fight, because Braum is alive for a long time. Lucian is sticking around with almost no HP against 2 champions that have leaps and Zillion's speed up, and it gets him killed. He should have just backed off, waited for Jace to come in first, and then come up from behind him, rather than kind of flirting with danger by standing in front. After Lucian dies, we see Jace goes in for no reason. He jumps in 4v1 with a tower that has 1 hit left. Pantheon's coming as well. They just mistimed. They mistimed a Rise TP, Pantheon ult, and Jace going in. Ends up not working out for them. EDG come away with a massive lead. They're now almost 5k ahead. And since they are running a triple or potentially quadra threat team with Zillion, it's very deadly for Dark Passage. EDG just need to throw themselves at Dark Passage's team, and it should work out. They have enough damage to win the fights now. Dark Passage don't have a real tank. They're all pretty squishy. Rise has yet to get his Rod of Ages. and everyone else on the team is fairly isn't building any kind of armor or defenses yet. So there's a lot of strength on EDG to just bully. Anytime they find a fight right now, they win. Dark Passage need to make a different type of play. They need to make a strategy decision and stick to it right now. The best thing that they can do as a team is group up as 5 and use Chase to poke. Do turret defense, siege the mid turret, rely on Chase's poke to give them an HP advantage. If they group up as 5-man, they also force EDG to lose out on CS or give up objectives. And this allows Dark Passage to sort of hamper EDGs from getting more and more damage. Like right now, Dark Passage should all be pushing middle. Tristana's bottom. They could have easily gotten the mid turret with their 4-man squad, or even having Rise down there and got the 5-man squad. Instead, they're delaying. They're playing very defensively. And this is something you can't do. When you have a team that doesn't scale up against the other team, then playing defensively doesn't work. Every 100 gold you get is less valuable than every 100 gold the other team gets. And since the other team is the ones with offensive capabilities, the ones who are controlling the map, it's more like every 100 gold to 200 gold. It just helps the other team outscale you faster. And the outscaling on Edward Gaming's side is going to come from Kha'Zix in the jungle. He'll definitely outscale Pantheon. And then Tristana will definitely outscale Lucian. Once again, particularly from the safety of range. With Kha'Zix, with Aurelia, with Zilean throwing bombs onto either one of them, Lucian is at has a very big amount of vulnerability to dives. Short-range ADCs have problems against multiple dive partners, and EDG's team is going to have sort of a 2.5-man dive with bombs from Zilean, Aurelia, and Kha'Zix going in. They can even plan it where Zilean tosses a bomb onto Aurelia, onto Kha'Zix. They both leap in. This should be enough to blow up any target on Dark Passage's team. So with EDG having the better late scaling team, it's up to Dark Passage to make moves. And this goes into what I just said about being behind and playing defensively. As a team who gets outscaled, you're just waiting for your inevitable defeat. Here we see Dark Passage do try and make a good kill. Unfortunately, EDG are able to collapse in time. Zilean ultimate's there. And we see the 4 damage sources of EDG just being too strong for Dark Passage. They pick a target, that target goes down very quickly. From this point on, the game is going to be over. If you're welcome to continue watching, if you want to learn a little bit more about individual matchups and some item choices, the macro level discussion of this match is over. EDG just need to constantly put pressure on Dark Passage. Take dragons, look for barons, fight for every red buff, every blue buff, get a lot of wards into Dark Passage's jungle, and pick a side to do it on. They pick top jungle, they can put 4 or 5 wards in it, and then push against mid turret and top turret until they take one down. This is a thing a lot of teams do when they get the lead. It's something that some teams don't do very well. It's looking for rotational mistakes. You completely ward one side of the enemy's jungle and then focus on the 2 turrets near those wards. This allows you to move back and forth, up, down, left, right, however you want to think about it, and always see what the other team is doing. Because you have jungle control, you have the faster movement paths, especially through the red side jungle. Moving from the mid turret to the bottom turret takes you as the offensive team less time than it takes the defensive team. And this allows you to move to a lane, get some damage on the turret, move back to middle, get some damage on the turret, move back bottom, and you constantly do this until you take out a turret. You never let things fall behind. And here we do see EDG's advantage. They absolutely destroy Pantheon in like 2 seconds. So having said that, macro level strategy, we will see EDG do this. They have sort of a 4-1 split push, which is very effective with ward control, as I was mentioning before in the jungle. You just wait and find your advantages. Wait till you catch somebody out, and they caught Pantheon out. So, talking about individual matchups, we'll go Ryze versus Aurelia first. I always kind of like to start from the top. Ryze can bully out Aurelia early on. He throws a lot of Qs, he has his Mono Crystal first, gets an early tier, constantly spamming against Aurelia, and he has all the advantages up until level 6. Once level 6 hits, Aurelia has all-in potential against Ryze. She dashes into a creep, gets a good stun onto Ryze, gets out her damage. When Ryze tries to snare and walk away, she has her dash up for the second time. Her ultimate makes sure that she can take Ryze's burst and then out sustain his damage. It's just much greater trade potential. Because Aurelia's ult is also on a low cooldown, and so is Ryze's. And she can go in, she can perform her trade damage. This forces Ryze onto the defensive if he's not killed, allows Aurelia to farm up her creeps with her sustain, and then wait till her ultimate comes back up again and do the same. Also, by going all in and getting Ryze low, this makes him a prime target for ganks. And the difference in power in the all-in really becomes apparent once Aurelia picks up her Sheen. Sheen plus her ultimate makes her extremely strong against all of the trifecta. She's very much able to win the lane on her own. She can't dive turrets at that point, so Ryze still has safety. He can sit back and farm. When Aurelia goes all in, her ultimate will naturally push the creeps, as will her taking damage from the minions of Dark Passage. In the mid lane match we mentioned before, it's really one where Zilean just avoids it. He can't control the pace of mid lane. The pace of mid lane is completely controlled by Jace, as Jace is the one who can win the duels, he'll win the trades, and he can push faster than Zilean. The flip side to this is Jace really needs his tier early. Unfortunately, Naru doesn't build this way. It gives him a little problems in the mid lane. If you build your tier early on Jace, it means you don't have any mono problems. You can spam the middle lane even when blue is down. You're constantly pushed up into EDG's turret, put out a couple wards on the side, and then you're prepared for Kha'Zix to gank. Get a nice knockback if he catches you on the leap, run away. Especially when your flash is up, you should be constantly pressuring Zilean at his turret. If you can keep Zilean at his turret, this means he can't roam. This means you get to get the damage, and if you can take out the middle turret early in a match, this provides tons of map pressure for you. So this is what I would have liked to have seen from Jace, grabbing that tier early and putting the pressure on the mid turret without stop. In terms of the bot lane matchup, I was also mentioned before, I'll go over it a little bit more. Lucian and Braum have the big bully potential. Lucian having much more trade damage, much more sustained damage than Tristana throughout the early levels. Braum's passive allows great CC. He's also a really superior tank to Thresh. He can take the hits, get the slow, and Lucian's able to proc Braum's passive very easily. Thresh and Tristana, I feel they should have looked for the 2v1 lanes. Other teams will definitely punish them for going into this 2v2 lane and punish them extremely hard. However, Aurelia would have a rougher time in the 2v1, being unable to really get any CS. Easily zoned out by Lucian Braum, sorry. Would have had to resulted in the double jungle. So it's a little trade-off for EDG, and in this match it works for them because they know they are the stronger individual players. But I would expect to see it come to bite them in the behind in other matches. What they can do is Thresh can look to get hooks onto Braum, since getting a hook onto Lucian should honestly be impossible. If he gets a hook onto Braum, Tristana can throw 1 or 2 hits out just to try and get some free damage. She doesn't want to trade with Lucian, so if you can knock down the support to maybe half HP, which is a lot harder because of their sustain through health pots, but if you are able to weaken him, then it weakens the full-on engage of Dark Passage. Here we see EDG are making their final push. They have played the matchup correctly. They're just using their triple threat team to completely dive onto Dark Passage's team and kill them before they're able to really respond. After getting Baron, they'll rotate and take out Dark Passage's space very methodically. Mid inhibitor, top inhibitor, go into the bottom inhibitor. One last ditch attempt made by Dark Passage, and of course it does backfire. They're too far behind. So if you're going to take anything away from this game, make sure you have a plan with your jungler, especially if you're going to pick somebody like Pantheon. Don't be looking for open opportunities, but rather have something in mind. What Dark Passage should have done is focus on bottom lane. They even had good dive potential with Pantheon, with the double stun from Braum, from the burst by Lucian. They could have taken out Thresh or taken out Tristana potentially before they reacted. Once level 6 was in play, Pantheon should have looked to go gank top, which he did end up doing, so good for that. It didn't quite work out, but he could have focused his ganks onto top after getting a kill on bottom, and that would have prevented Aurelia's power spike with her level 6 and her Sheen or Phage against Ryze. So that would have been a good plan for Dark Passage to make. Bottom early, move top during Ryze's weak point, and continue on from there. This game is dragged out by EDG a bit. They've been ahead for the past 10 minutes or so, and pretty significantly ahead. They've drawn out the game. They've taken all 3 inhibitors. They're playing very methodically, so you can't necessarily fault them for taking their time. Their team is going to scale up better. They're constantly getting more gold. Every minute that goes by, the power difference between Dark Passage and EDG is growing and growing. So they're closing out the game essentially properly. With not being outscaled by Dark Passage in the late game, they have no need to rush it. So it ends up working really well. Even though they could have finished the game around 21-22 minutes, they do make a nice closeout at the 27-minute mark, which is still pretty early. And that is your game. I hope it was informative, insightful, or at least entertaining, that you gained some knowledge on team compositions, on how to plan out a jungle route, how you need to have some purpose in your play from the very start, not just go in and say, let's figure it out inside the game. Another thing, pay attention to your item choices, especially in the mid lane, when you need to make decisions on Jace, whether you should go for early power in dueling, or you should go for the scaling power in the Manamune. In this situation, it was definitely picking up the Manamune. That way you can have greater lane push ability, not necessarily 1v1 fight ability. And as always, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as a link to all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship notes and video analysis. Once again, I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.